Hello and welcome to my channel on human design. Today we have a special episode. As you may know, some of you, my regulars, will know that I got very fascinated by Veda Austin and her experiments into the connection in consciousness between us and water. If you haven't seen that episode, don't worry, because I'm going to show an intro in a minute to introduce what I'm about to do. Because I thought it would be fun to have a look at Veda's chart and see what it was in her that could lead her to the discovery that she made. To look at it at a mechanical level. Okay, so before we go into the chart and look at the mechanics behind the woman that made this discovery, let's look at the introductory film that she puts on her website so that all of us can be on the same page and you know what we're looking into. So here's the introduction on her homepage to what she does and what she's discovered. Enjoy.
Water. What do we really know about it? Some scientists say it seeded the Earth from meteorites, while others say it came up from within the Earth's mantle. Fondly known as the rebel element, water defies both physics and gravity. It expands when it freezes and makes its way upwards through tree trunks. Water is mentioned 722 times in the Bible, more than faith, worship, and love. The Quran says we have created every living thing from water, and the Upanishads say the whole universe is made up of water. All beings are made up of water. When we look at a water analysis, we only learn about what water holds. But what do we learn about water itself? Does it have a spirit or a mind? Does it have the ability to store memory? My name is Veda Austin. I'm a water researcher from New Zealand, specializing in crystallography. Over the last decade, I've been studying water in its state of creation, the phase between liquid and ice, and I've discovered something extraordinary. Water appears to intelligently respond to human consciousness. It uses its building blocks of ice to design recognizable pictographs, enabling it to share its messages or acknowledgement back to us in picture form. Have you noticed a little sailboat appearing in the ice? The influence was the thought of a sailboat. My first experience of this phenomenon was when I projected the thought of my hand into a petri dish of water, froze it, pulled it out, and in the architecture of the ice was a hand. I then froze some seawater and an image of a fish appeared. I now have over 40,000 photos of water responding this way. Here are a few examples showing the influence on the right and the ice response on the left. I inspire water in many ways, including thoughts, music, media, words, photos, and emotions. I've even spoken to water and received written responses. The photos you're seeing now were all taken on my iPhone, not altered or photoshopped. They were designed by water and crystallized in ice. So what does this mean? Could the ancients and indigenous be right? Could water really be a living being?
All right, so now let's go into the chart and see what we find. All right then, so here we have the chart. You can see there's a split definition here with an inspired mind that is unconscious and in the channel of logic, in the 63-4, that is joining the head center with the green ajna. So this is what I would describe as an analytical side to her. And remember when she talked about inspiring the water. I mean, how perfect is that? She's inspiring the water. If we look at the 63-4, so this is a logical mind that is also trying to bridge the split between the two sides of her in the 43. So if I was to say, looking for the insight, the conceptual framework within which to let the 63-4 out, to express it in a way that is original. So she's going to be interested in original insights because this bridges the split. And, you know, it's fourth line. And indeed, we'll see as we go into the cycle chart that she's in that the 43-4 does indeed appear in her nodal path and bridges that split. In fact, compromises her, but we'll come to that. So a little bit about the 63. The 63-4, so it's 63 is about the doubting Thomas, you know, suspicious, thinking about the future and thinking, well, I don't think that's going to work. We've got to find an answer. We've got to find an answer so we can be okay in the future. And there's the answer. You know, in the fourth line, a resonant line that is all about seeing the solution, seeing the logic, having the patterns reveal themselves through fantasy, trying out the different theories, looking for the formulas that can show themselves, you know, in a way that isn't necessarily strictly logical. It's like the answer is in front of you. Remember, this is unconscious. To be able to think about things in a way that is beyond normal logical thinking. The exalted part of the answer that she carries unconsciously within her is the potential to find or illustrate the formulas through fantasy in the questions that she asks in that video. Were the ancients right? You know, what can we imagine that could align logically with what we're seeing now in the experiments? Trying to find a way to find out what the hell is going on. And is this something that can help us in the future? And the kicker of it all is that the name of the line of the 63, line 4, the inspiration, the one source that's coming through her from the head, is in the line called memory. And what are we dealing with? We're dealing with water that we understood before her, that it holds a memory. We just didn't realize that we could, in her discovery, is that we can actually be interactive with it. It's the detailed accounting of the achievement process whose information base can prepare a new order for the future. The pressure to explore the doubt in detail as a foundation for eventual formalization. To really go into it, to see what the structure is, to ask the questions, and to find out. Now, with logic, it's normally you think in terms of patterns. And here we have a visual effect that's coming from her consciousness on the water. She's perceiving into it. This is the right angle cross of penetration, to really be able to go into what is outside of them. The cross of penetration in the 53rd gate in the personality sun. So this is a gate of beginnings. This is a gate of the beginnings of a process. It's abstract. It's about the process. It's about growing through the process. And often in terms of the 53, it's looked at as beginning a project that then can be taken to the end if someone has the 42nd gate on the other side. But it's the beginning. So in a way, what is she doing? She is beginning a process. She is experimenting. And how is she experimenting? How did it begin? It began with her holding a Petri dish of water with her hand. Now, her cognition is touch. how perfect that it begins with touch, and it begins with connection to see what will happen. There is going to be a lot of questions in Veda's life. She thinks in terms of questions, because this is what happens when you've got an inspired head. Look at all the questions that you've just been asked in watching that brief video. But the wonderful thing about logic is that it's also looking for evidence. It's looking for evidence to be able to repeat in front of others to prove their point, which is exactly what she does. You know, working with the crystals, it's clearly apparent that we can see images that relate to some kind of interface between her and the water, through thought, or through putting a word in the Petri dish, or feeling something, or playing of music. There is an effect that is put into the water. And she's here to, she's managed to discover a way of actually experimenting a lot with it in all different kinds of ways. Now, you'd normally think in terms of what we're seeing, which is like pictograms, and we're seeing images. Whenever I think about that, I think in terms of the abstract and the abstract way of thinking, visualizing images from the past. So again, this 53rd gate, being an abstract gate, taps into that, despite the fact that she doesn't have an abstract eye as such. When we think about eyes, when we think about when we think about the physical eyes, we think about the left and right eye, the 17 and the 11. You can even say, you can think about the third eye in the 43. Well, she has none of those. She's not fixed there. She's open to be able to see what she sees without that particular conceptual structure of being able to interpret it in one way or another through the eyes. So she literally is opening herself up to see what water brings to her. Once she's put in the stimulus, she waits to see. And she doesn't know. So let's have a look and see. We've got the other part of her is very powerful, an adrenalized manifesting generator. And whenever I look at generators, well, actually, whenever I look at any chart, but with generators especially, I go and have a look and see what is the available energy. Well, the available energy in 34 that she has in Neptune is in Machismo and the Bully. It's a kind of a pushy energy that is just comes from nowhere. An impulse that moves her into action, if you like. Imagine that when she's considering what she stimulates the water with, or what she imprints into the water. We have the 14th gate there in the sacral, and the 14th gate is looking for direction. It's looking for direction. And it's got the resources, it's got the power to be able to put into something that is both creative and unusual, creative and individual. It's in the 14.3, so, you know, this is either in the service, you know, to use that energy in the service of empowering others, or it turns to greed. And there's always that side of it. But basically, once you get beyond that and you realize that the power of the 14, you know, the money that you receive for the service that you do is a byproduct of the direction you're going in, then it works much better. It continues to move. It continues to circulate. We have the 27th gate in there, unconscious, in the line of self-sufficiency. And I want you to think about the second line. I want you to think about the fact that she has 7 second lines in this chart. And I usually think, well, I think about the second lines in lots of different ways, but one of the ways is they live within their own bubble. It's a self-motivated aspect, but it can also be there to be called out. And for that kind of thinking, I think in terms of a spiritual aspect. It's often smooth, it's often gifted. And Veda has more second lines than any other line in the chart. So here in self-sufficiency, we're looking at an energy that is available for nourishment in the natural way. Think about the second line in terms of what is natural. I can't think of anything more natural than water, but also self-sufficient, nourishing. Nourishing, it's 27th gate is a gate in the wheel that is in the quarter of the mind, the first quarter. So this is really, although it's a power, although it's a sacral power, the energy to be self-sufficient, it's also the energy to nourish. If we give an example of nourishing children, you don't want to just nourish them with food and shelter. You have to nourish their minds. You have to get them to the point where they can be self-sufficient, when they can stand on their own feet. And there is this mental side to nourish their minds, to get them, I'm sure she does with her own children, to get them to think about things, to ask questions. So all that's related. We have the 9th gate as in the sacral. So this is the ability and the power to focus on small details in the first line. So first line is either a strong line or it's a weak line. If it's a weak line, she's not going to focus. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult to focus. But if she does focus, she can really go down into the depths with the 52nd gate underneath her. This is a focused and concentrated part of the full channel of concentration, to be able to focus on the small details as part of the experiment. So she's also capable, with all that power, with all that energy, she's also capable of honing it down, down a very narrow way, to really look at the details that are involved, which is exactly what she does. Now we're down in the root. Again, look at the 54th gate. Now the 54th gate, she has both black and red. You can see it in the stripeness of that gate. She has it in the 54-4, in the earthing of this design, in the personality earth. This is the alpha and omega. This is the end and the beginning. This is pure potential, with no guarantee that anything will come out, but there is always that possibility, and grounding herself in her life in that way. And I think that actually her discovery here is completely in alignment with that. The 54 is there to rise up the ladder, rise up the material ladder. The concubine who became Empress of all China, the rise from the bottom to the top, the rags to riches story of those that have the energy and the ambition to move up, whatever it takes. But it's also about the rise through the spiritual journey. She has the full channel. She has a 32 on the other side, the full channel of transformation. Transformation, this pressure within her to use her awareness. It hits into the spleen, to use her awareness to see what is there that is consistent. The 32nd gate doesn't really want change. It's afraid of change. But at the same time, this push to transform the way things are done in order to find something more, to go up the rung of the ladder, as I believe she's done by pointing to us that there is a consciousness connection between humans and water. I think that's amazing. That's why I'm doing this, because I think it's amazing. We come into the spleen, and we've got the whole of integration bar the 10th gate. She doesn't have a fixed way of behaving any more than I do. I share with her those 3 gates, the 34 in the sacral, 57 in the spleen, and the 20th gate in the throat. When we're looking at the channel, the 5720, we're looking at the channel of the brain wave, the clarity of intuition that cuts right through in the moment. And you'll see this is in her earth, in her incarnation cross, the right angle cross of penetration. There it is in the 57.6. So this intuitive knowing that cuts through in the moment to be able to express something or create something that is not normally said or seen. This is the penetrating behind the cross of penetration. This is the penetrating awareness. But like a gentle wind, you do not notice until you're chilled to the bone. It just pervades through whatever it is. It is this pervading, penetrating awareness into what is around. So she has that at an unconscious level. Now, when we're thinking about the limitations of what water can do, she's found that by programming, if I put it that way, influencing the water and then freezing the water for a fairly short period of time in a Petri dish, that you actually get these incredible patterns. So where's pattern? Where is pattern consciousness? There it is, again in the second line. At least one of them's in the second line in the 48.2, and she also has it in the 48.1. So this is in Uranus, and this is really about being able, it's a gate of logical solutions, but it's also a gate of collecting the perfected patterns from the 58.18 movement up into that, to be able to offer this as a solution for us, an experiment to try. As Ra often says, logic is starved of funds. It's not easy to get the money you need to run independent experiments as a scientist. Most of the money for scientists come through the corporations. There's very few independent ones. And I don't know whether she would call herself a scientist or not, but the point is, this is scientific experimentation. You try it, you imprint it, you wait and see what happens. You repeat it with different thoughts, new things happen, completely in concordance with what you're putting in. So this, I would say this would be a well, it's the gate of the well, a well of not only information, but a well of an opening, if you like. You can talk about the second line as being closed or open, and opening into an awareness to see beneath the patterns, beneath the surface of how people have regarded water, and to see there's actually something else going on. Let's look at the open solar plex for a minute, and you can see there are 3 gates there. The 6th gate is the one I want to look at the moment. The 6th gate, what is that? It's a gate that opens or not to let its feelings out. It is looking for the 59th gate, the power for intimacy, the power for a productiveness, the power for something that is fertile. At a mental level anyway, looking for connection. If I look at it that way, looking for connection, looking for powerful connection. And indeed, she's found it. If we look at the G center and we look at the direction of the life, well, there are 2 roles. There's the role of leader, that again she has in a second line. This is the line of leadership. And she has the full channel of the 1333, something I've talked about a few times on my YouTube channels. It's the direction of looking back in the past, you know, seeing where you've come from and seeing where you are now, getting the overall perspective through looking back. But as the 1333 moves forward in their life, I found it to be basically the leadership direction that goes, well, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. It is, again, abstract. It is part of a journey. It's the prodigal son that left the tribe and went off wandering to see what they may find, and came across so many treasures, so many revelations they can then bring back to the tribe and tell them where they've been and what they've seen to enrich the tribe. It's a mythical journey. At least that's the way I like to think about it a lot of the time. It's a mythical journey. It's kind of, here she is rediscovering, she says in her own words, rediscovering what the ancients talked about. This path of looking back, what have we lost? I also resonate with that with my 56 and various other things. And it is indeed a mythical journey of experience, because you don't know what water is going to bring you. If we, and this, because she has it in a resonant channel, it is resonant in the second line, which means it's, it moves smoothly. And it is the, if we put them together without using the keynotes of the I Ching, because the I Ching is there, it's an encrypted source material for human design, but at the same time you have to break out of the encryption in order to see in your own way. You need to refer to it, you need to understand it really well. But in this case, I'm looking at it as the 33, which is 33 line 2, which is a surrender to more powerful forces, you know, to be able to move with the powerful forces in their direction in order to expand yourself, which is again what is happening with her in the water. 13.2 is basically, if I describe it as the way forward is held within a tight bubble, her interest. She'll bring other people into, as I'm offering you to now, she will bring other people to her treasures of what she's found out, you know, by staying on that path, seeing what other treasures she can find. And she's really found many things. If you look at her website, you'll find she's found many things. We have the 23rd gate there in the third line, which is also, if you like, an expression of insight that undermines what has been known before. It can often come out in a new language or a new way of knowing. That it's a trial and error line. So this is about individuality that does or does not attract threat, but it does attract attention. And she has attracted attention. She's attracted my attention. And her discovery is something that I'm very happy to put forward to all of you. Let's look at the open will, and what do we find there? We find the 51st gate. Again, it's part of the incarnation cross. It's there in the design sun, the destiny sun. If we look at the open ego, we find the 51-6, exalted, the power to go it alone. Now, she doesn't have a will power. She's not a willful creature. But she has a lot of other powers. She has an adrenalized sacral, for heaven's sake, that gets to the throat all the time. She's got to be busy. She's got to be in it. What does it look at? The 51 looks to the love of the inanimate. love of the inanimate in the 25th gate in the G center. And the 51s, when the shock comes, it's a gate of shock. When the shock comes, when the forces come, they take the jump without even knowing they've taken the jump sometimes. They just find themselves in it. And she's found herself in this. And she's sharing through her 1335 what she's found out. So you can see the pulls in the 51 and the 6 towards this. You can see the drive in the 54-4 to move further up the ladder of growing, meeting, expanding, taking us to the next level. I see this channel of transformation very much about taking things to the next level. And I like things like that. I really do. We have a 4-6 profile. So this is a friendly being who has her network. And I could go deeper. I could look at where she is in her cycle of life. And I don't know exactly when she made the discovery, but I'm betting it was at a cycle change. So just a very quick look at the cycle change that she's in Chiron. Just looking at the chart, everything that is green is Veda's natal chart. Everything that is blue is the transit itself. The costume that comes over her 4-6 costume is a 1-3 costume. It's the investigator by trial and error, which is exactly what she's doing. The focus of the mind is what I'd like to call natural joy, the 58-2. The delight of using this intelligence and this analytical mind to go into the logic of things that is well outside the normal scientific and interest of most people that have the 58. It's a natural joy. It can go in a weird direction. Still got the logic, but it's got juice for this. Juice, what do you have juice for? Do you have juice for your career and building your company? No, I have juice for communicating with water because I'm loving it and it's so much fun. And so I just wanted to laugh at that. The compromise, there are personal connections with the channel of awakening, the 2010, channel of exploration with the 1034, and the personal connection with the channel of perfected form with the 1057. Basically, the 10th gate comes in and connects to what she already has is in the integration channel. It's the gate of behavior. And what is she looking at? She's looking at the behavior of water. Wonderful. You couldn't make this stuff up. The vision comes in the second gate, unexpectedly, in Uranus, again in a second line in the 2-2. The compromised channels is, the 43, 23 comes in as part of her nodal path. That's the horseshoes that you can see on the right-hand side, the 23 and the 43. And they're both in the 4th line, which is resonant to her natal chart in fragmentation. How perfect is that? So the road she walks on in this path is the one-track mind in the 43-4 and the 23-4 in fragmentation. You can see the way that water moves in the time lapse that she shows us, the fragmentation, the coming together, the splitting apart. It's amazing. A purely individual path she walks down now. Here to, well, possibly in the 14-5, this is really I'm not going to be using the keynotes of the line, because in this case, I think it's more powerful to speak about the 14.5 as being the power to empower heretical, a heretical direction, a beautiful and heretical direction, something that, you know, is not out there in the common parlance, that is not really known. And the power for that, the power to put that into the beautiful, natural vision of the 2-2, and to make a practical contribution in the 8-5, which is indeed what I think. This is the beginning of something. I would, you know, from what I'm looking at, this is the beginning of something that could become very important to humanity in many, many ways. You know, I'm a 42, you know, when a 53 brings something to me or starts something off that I get involved with, I love it. I love it, because then I can dive in there. Once they've begun it, then I can go in. And I hope that this video may have begun something for you in thinking about all this. And I hope you've enjoyed my kind of brief overview of her chart and what's been going on. And if you did enjoy it, please like and share and subscribe. And I will see you again very soon with something completely different. Bye-bye for now.